This week's Torah reading is called Kadoshim. Kadoshim. There's about 50 commandments in it. I see each and every book has a little bit of a different number calculation. The one I read over here says it has 51, and the other one over here, which is the same book, it says that it has 49. But I counted them, and it came out to be 50. So I don't get it. In any case, it's not that important. Let's see. We'll do it ourselves. I brought this book up also, like we did last time, so we can learn some of the commandments. Here we go. Let's just do a few of these commandments, and then we'll go to the number of the commandments. Ready? Yes. See, here we go. Oh, no, it doesn't work that way. Okay. God spoke to Moses to say over to the Jewish people. Speak to the Jewish people. All the congregation of the Jewish people, Marta Lehem, and say to them, Kadoshim to you must be holy. Ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokeichem, because I am holy. God, your God. What does this mean? Apparently, absolutely nothing. What does it mean? Be holy. What does that mean? What are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to be holy? Of course, you're going to be holy. Who reads this book? A Jewish person that he wants to know what the commandments are, what to do. He wants to come close to God, so he wants to be holy. Or a person that's not holy, doesn't want to be holy. So what good does it do? He doesn't believe in God, so God tells him to be holy. What good is it going to do? So we'll understand what this means. What exactly is this commandment? What is God trying to say over to the Jewish people? God says to Moses, speak to all the Jewish people and say to them that they have to be holy, because I am holy, your God. Right, well, let's just go a little bit further and just to put this sort of in context. Next commandment, we have a beautiful explanation here, especially according to the Ramban. Ish imo v'aviv tiro, a person, his mother and father, he should fear. Ves shabtsotai tishmoro, and my Shabbat you should keep. Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am God, your God. So we'll see that in this Torah portion, apparently, there's no common theme in these commandments. There's a lot of the commandments are between us and God. A lot of the commandments are between us and ourselves, not to eat certain things, whatever, not our parents. So let's just look at a couple of the commandments, and then we'll start explaining. So we say you should be holy. Next commandment. A person, his mother and his father should fear, and you should keep my Shabbat. I am God. What's the connection between your father and your mother and Shabbat? I am God. I mean, one obvious connection is that your parents made you, so to speak, and God made the whole world. So he made your parents also. Not only that, God is even making you right now. And he just wants you to observe his day, right? In other words, remember your father, physical father and mother, and take one day out and remember your spiritual father and mother, but also God, your creator, to remember who's creating the whole entire world. This is who's created you, who's creating the whole world. So really the fact is your parents did not really create you, but they were partners in creating you. And so you have to give them honor, and you also give God honor. Next commandment. We'll look at this quickly because don't go after the Elilim, false gods. Ve'Elohim Masecha, gods of statue, of what do you call them? Molten gods, gods that you formed. Lo tasu lachem, don't make for yourselves. So it doesn't mean that you just formed it out of metal or wood. You could also form them in your mind. Don't make it for yourselves. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am God, your God. Oh, very good. Oh, Herschel, hello. Next commandment. Ki tizbechu zevach shlomim l'Hashem, when you make a sacrifice of a shlomim offer, liratzonechem tizbechu, you have to do it in the proper way. B'yom zivrachem yoshechel, it has to be eaten in that day, and the next day also. About nosar, what's left over, on the third day, you have to burn it. That's a shlomim offering. You have to eat it. It's eaten by the owner also. But if you eat it on the third day, you're supposed to burn it on the third day. If you eat it, then it's called pigul. Pigul means offerings. Pigul means that you slaughtered the offering with the intention to eat it after the time. And then it's called pigul. Pigul means you overstep the time limit. Then it's not any good. Anyone who eats it will bear his sin, because the holiness of God he has profaned, and he will be cut off from his people. We're talking about this in the temple. Okay, that's enough. Let's just look at some of these commandments over here. Get a quick look at the commandments, and then we'll learn that beautiful Ramban. Ready? Here it goes. What happened? There we go. All right, here we have Parshas Kadoshim, 13 positive commandments, 25 negative commandments. I have this same exact book, I have it here. And in my book, it says 28 negative commandments. See, you want to see? Don't believe me? I don't blame you for not believing me. Here we go. Can you see it? No, probably not. Anyway, here it says Lamed Ches. Okay. It's not important. We'll count the number. Let's just look at a few of the commandments that we're going to be learning here. We're looking at this in a very, superficial way at first. We'll go into it a little bit. So we have positive commandment number 92. And this is the commandment. There's 613 commandments, right? 613 commandments. And so this is the number of the commandments. That's how he wrote the book, which number commandment is. And this counts the positive commandment. This is the negative commandments. Negative commandments puts it here. So this is positive commandment number 92. And then the next one is negative commandment number 122. There are more negative commandments than positive commandments. Positive commandments, there's 248, and negative commandments, 356. Here we go. Ready? Positive commandment. Mitzvot H, a positive commandment that you should fear for your mother you should fear your mother and father. Like it says, Ish imo v'aviv tiro. You should fear them. What it means? Why should you be afraid of them? Because God is commanding you to be afraid of them, not that they're going to do anything to you. Not that God is going to do anything to you either. Could be not. Just you owe God so much. Do what he says. Not only that, if you think about it, you have a lot of reasons to fear your mother and father. Not to fear them in the sense that they're going to punish you, but to fear them in the sense of giving them honor. What does it mean to fear? Lo yamod v'yoshev b'makomo. Don't stand in the place where your father and mother always stand. Don't sit in their chair. Don't contradict them. Right? If they say something, you can say to them, "Are you sure, Dad, that that's right? Could it be that maybe I read something else?" But you have to be honest. Don't say, "That's not right, Father. Hey, you made a mistake, Ma." Can't do that. Lo yachriya et devorav. Don't try to tilt his words. Right? He should explain. Lo yikra'onu b'shmo. Don't call your father by his name. Right? Your father's name is Yehuda. Don't call him Yehuda. Not your mother either. Lo b'chayav v'lo b'muso. Not when he's alive and not when he's dead. You have to honor your parents. You have to respect them. You have to be in awe. Ela yomer abba mora. You should say, "My father, Dad." my teacher. Fa'av v'em, a mother and father, shneim, they are equal as far as giving honor and fear. We'll see what Rashi has to say. Nevertheless, the father is before the mother because your mother also has to give your father honor. So the father is the head of the house. Patriarchal order. Pashva Katuv, the Torah has equated their honor and their fear to the honor and fear of God. In other words, just the way that you have fear of God, because God creates you, so your parents also had a hand in creating you. Even though God also creates your parents, but still your parents are your parents. They gave birth to you. But overall, Zeh, one who transgresses, we're talking about, in other words, your parents, if so, they have like a more intense level of life. They gave you life. So you have to be in awe, a certain degree of your parents. A person who transgresses this, and he is lightheaded with his parents, so he has negated a positive commandment, unless they agree. The father that says, okay, you can call me by my first name, that's all right if they agree. This is everywhere and every time, call bechol makom kol zaman, with males and females. Next, not to go after idolatry. Shene'amar, like it says, al tifnu el elim, do not go after the false gods. Rashi says the word elilim comes from the word al, not. In other words, they're not in real existence. Also, lifnot acharayim, you can't go after them in speech and thought. Even beria, even looking at them, is forbidden to read their books, or to ask to be inquisitive. How exactly what do they do exactly in church? What type of, how many wafers they eat or whatever the things they do over there. Shemitoch, because of this, you start thinking about it. Shene'amar upen tidrosh Elohim, or maybe you'll start going after them. Le'mor echa yavdu agoyim, etc. We see like in the golden calf, right? The Jewish people, they knew they shouldn't do it, but they couldn't stop themselves. It's a very comforting idolatry. Idolatry is very successful. It's very comforting. It's very fulfilling in a certain sense. Something like drugs, something like, sexual crimes. These things are very, satisfying for a while, but it's forbidden. Anyone who goes after them, the punishment is getting beaten. Etc., etc. Turn after them. Next commandment, don't make idolatry in order to worship it. You can't even make it for a non-Jew, right? A non-Jew comes in your store, says, I'll give you $1 million, make me a nice cross. Can't do it. Like it says, you're not allowed to make any god or sign of a god, whatever, that's worshipped. You're not allowed to do it. Now, of course, you have to understand that these things work. If they didn't work, nobody would do it. These idols work. We see in the Jews in Egypt, that Egypt ruled over the whole world, and the Egyptians were sure that the one that gave them this power were their gods. Their gods. And even if you say that it wasn't their gods that gave them the power, so where did it come from? Where did their power, yes, come from? So God did not do anything to negate this false conclusion that worshiping idols is a good thing. Didn't do anything to stop it. But nevertheless, it's not a good thing. God doesn't want you to do it. The im over, if you make an idol, the punishment is lashes. If you do it for yourself, even if you don't, but you made a big statue of Buddha or whatever you make, and you didn't even do it, you didn't even bow down to it, then you get 2 lashes. Now there's no lashes anymore, but the time is one, because, and also in order to get lashes, you have to be warned. There has to be witnesses, and you have to make this thing immediately after you're warned. So you get beaten twice, one because of the negative commandment, and also because of the the negative commandment of turning after them, and also because of making the idol itself. This is every place, man or woman, etc. Okay, let's look at the last one we had over here. Remember, we jumped to a totally different topic, and that is if a person brings a sacrifice which is to be eaten, which is called a shlomim. That's one of the sacrifices that are eaten. This is explicit. Don't eat ki Kadoshim. The Kodesh puzzle, it is forbidden. There's a negative commandment on eating it and leaving over. This is from anything that is no longer holy. You're not allowed to eat it as being holy. A thing that was holy, unless it's holiness, you cannot eat it. Nevertheless, if you did leave it over from the sacrifice, what's called the peace sacrifice, and you ate it, so the person who ate it does a sin, but that does not disqualify the sacrifice. It's good. The sacrifice is still good. This idea of wanting to eat the sacrifice after the time, this doesn't make only if you thought about eating it after the time when you were in the process of sacrificing it. In other words, if after you sacrificed a sacrifice, what's called a shlomim in this case, and you can eat it on 2 days. The third day has to be burned. If you do leave it over, it doesn't disqualify that. But if you had it in your mind to eat it after the time, when you slaughtered it, when you took the blood, took the blood to the altar, you sprinkled the blood, and when you burned it, those 4 things. If you had thought of eating the sacrifice after the time, when you did one of those 4 things, slaughtering, receiving the blood, spilling the blood, and burning the sacrifice, then that does disqualify the sacrifice, makes it no good. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to this beautiful Ramban over here. We go. Ready? Let's go. Yes. All right, back to the beginning. God spoke to Moses, saying, speak to all the Jewish people and say to them, you should be holy because I am holy, your God. Ramban. Kavar Amru Rabotenu, the rabbis already, our rabbis, Ramban lived like what? 800 years ago, 700 years ago, something like that. He was after the Rambam, but Rashi was like 900 years ago, and Ramban was like 800 years ago. And the Ramban, he was after the Rambam about 100 years. So that's the Ramban. Rabbi Moses ben Nachman, that was his name. Now, somebody's called Nachmanides. He was a genius in all aspects of the Torah. He was also a big doctor, and etc. Our rabbi said, this is talking about this Torah portion was mentioned in Hakel. Hakel was once every 7 years after the Shemitah year, all the Jewish people gathered together and Sukkot, and the king, they built a big stage for the king to stand on, and he would read portions from the Torah to all the Jewish people. Everyone was supposed to be there. So this was one of the portions that was spoken about then, that was read on this huge podium that they built. Because Sharov Gufi Torah Tuluyimbo, because the majority of the Torah depends on it. That's what it means. It says, speak to all of Adat Israel, the whole entire congregation of the Jewish people. But it's mentioned over here, B'Torat Kohanim, in the book of Leviticus, because it's talking about the sacrifices of Shlomim, right? That's what we just talked about now. A person makes a Shlomim offering, he has to eat it within the first 2 days. And also the different judgments that are made on forbidden sexual relationships. We'll see that, we'll get to that later on. This, by the way, this Torah portion here is read. I'm sorry, right, Torah, good. About the forbidden sexual relations. We'll talk about that later. All right, now this is the Ramban I wanted to get to. So what is the Ramban saying to us? What is he saying? This is a tremendously important Torah portion because it tells us we have to be holy and we have to sanctify ourselves. In what way? What way? So there's a lot of different explanations, but he has his unique one, and this is really very, very important to us now. Usually they say Kadoshim to you, that you have to be holy. What does it mean? Separate yourself from forbidden sexual unions. And also from other sins. The Kol Makom Shata Motzen Geder Arayos, Erva, every time that we find that people hold themselves back from forbidden sexual relations, Atamafan Kadush, you find holiness. That's what Rashi says. But we didn't read Rashi. That's what Rashi says. Kadosh, you should be separate. This is Rashi, right? Rashi. Any place that people separate themselves from forbidden sexual relationship, you find holiness. Like it says, Isha zona v'chalala, ani Hashem ekadishchem, lo yechalu zaro. Okay. Of course, the reason for this is that a person, when he does a forbidden sexual relationship, it feels good. And so it changes his whole, it bribes the person. So the person, it's like accepting a bribe. All of a sudden, his whole mind thinks differently. And he can't think objectively. Things that he would tell other people not to do, he himself does. Because when the other person does it, it doesn't get any feeling from it. But when he does it, it feels good. So therefore, it's telling us to separate from forbidden sexual relationship, etc. And that's what it says over there. He's kadashtem, Yisam Kadoshim. You have to make yourself holy because I am holy. Just like I am holy, so you should be holy. Just like I am separate from the world, God, just like God is separate from the world, doesn't get involved in the world. Also, you should be separate from the world. Don't get involved in the world. Okay, of course, this is misunderstood by a lot of religions to say the priests have to not be married and they have to be they sit and fast all the time. That's what some people say in any case. That's holiness. Says the Ramban, Lefi dati, according to my opinion, Ein aprishus hazu, the Pershman Arayas. Here where it says you have to be holy is not telling us to abstain from forbidden sexual relationships. Kadivra Arav, like Rashi says. Aval aprishus he is a mazkiras b'kol makom b'talmud she ba'alea Nikra and Perushim, that a person that does this thing which is called being separate, the Perushim, that's why the way that the great scholars and holy tzaddikim of the Talmud and the Mishnah, that's what everyone is called, this derogatory term. That's a product of the whole crooked Christianity, but they're called Perushim. The fact is, on the Perushim, they're called Pharasites, right? A Pharisaical statement is like a sort of a, not truthful or whatever. The Perushim, they were super holy people. Where was their holiness? Torah, his hero Barayas, the Torah forbade us to have certain sexual relations and certain types of forbidden food. But the Torah did not forbid sexual relationships. And he did not forbid eating good food. The Torah permitted us that a man can have relations with his wife and a person can eat meat and drink wine. Then now this is what's coming to tell us. Yimsa bala taiva, you can find out that a person that has big lust, so he can find a good place to be shutaf bezimas ishto on nashavarba. According to the Torah, a man can, according to literal law, a person can have relations with his wife as long as she's permissible to him, right? As long as she doesn't see blood. So he can demand from her all the time to have relations, or he can take more women and he can be thinking about sex all the time. they can make more women, right? They can, a little Torah permits a person to get married. One time that was very good because there weren't enough men to go around, and so women simply didn't get married. So they permitted a man to get married to more than one woman. But you can also misuse this. You can think, well, if it's permissible to drink wine, so I'll just drink wine all the time. Bozole basar, I'll eat the best meat. A person, I can say whatever I want to. Call in the velos. The Torah doesn't say in the Torah that you can't say dirty language and speak not nice things, right? Make you say the dirty jokes. So you will be, this is the famous statement of the Rambam, you will be disgusting with the permission of the Torah. According to the Torah, a person can, whatever is, eat the meal in the toilet and whatever. According to the Torah, why not? So a person is going to look around and say, listen, whatever I want to do, I'll find the permission to do it. The Torah supports me. That's what it's coming to tell you. After it explains what the things are forbidden. That's last week's Torah portion. All these forbidden sexual relationships. There are things that are totally forbidden. But Siva Badavar Kalali, now it's saying Shinea Perushi Mina Musaros. Now it's telling us that the things that are permissible, you should nevertheless limit yourself. You don't have to have sexual relationships anytime that you want to. Like it says, it says that the Talmidei Chachamim should not be with their having marital relations with their wives like roosters with chickens. The person should, in other words, control himself in order to do the commandment. And also the same thing with wine. Drink a little bit of wine. Like it says, a Nazir, Kodesh, that says that Nazir, he's holy because he withholds himself from wine totally. So we see that the abstaining from wine, it's permissible to drink wine. And sometimes it's even a commandment to drink wine, to make kiddush, right? Especially with holidays, you can make a mol HaChaim, but to overdo it and to drink, you have to remind yourself, how can you stop yourself from drinking? It's so good, and so especially they used to have really fine wine. You have to remember the bad things came from wine in the Torah, like Noach and Lot. Right? Noach, he got drunk. It says one of his sons castrated him, and Lot, he became drunk, and he uncovered himself in he had relations with his daughters. Mekain Yifrosh Yafrish Atzmo Minatuma. And also to keep yourself away from impurity, even though you're not warned in the Torah. Like it says, we talked about Big Day Amoretz. It says the garments of the ignorant Jews are called midrash. Midrash is a type of impurity. For the Perushim, the people who are serious about the Torah are called Perushim. Nazir, the Nazir is also called holy. Why? Because he keeps away from impurity of death. He keeps away from dead bodies. So also you should try to keep yourself, etc., and don't be overeat, etc. So okay, he continues in this vein. But what he's trying to say is that to be holy means in the things which are totally permissible to you, which are not commandments, things which are permissible, and that you can make an excuse that, listen, I got an opening, I can just let loose. You're going to do whatever I want to, eat as much as I want. So it says, therefore it says, you eat true as you can, but that's not being holy. Being holy means is that you, even the things that are permissible, even in your spare time, right? When you're just talking in the street, you're not doing any sins whatsoever, you're not saying any bad things about it. Also in those times, you should also say only positive things and only things which are conducive to serving the creator of the universe, being aware of the creator of the universe. Okay, that's the Ramban. Beautiful Rambam. Do not be a novel Bereshus Torah. Don't be disgusting according to the Torah. Right? The Torah left a lot of room for a person to, you should not eat pig, but according to the Torah, you can eat like a pig. And here the Ramban says, oh no, you can't. Here we have a commandment which says you must be holy, even in the permissible things that you think that you just do whatever you want to, and you're not doing any sin from the Torah. Nevertheless, comes and says, yes, you are, that you have to sanctify yourself in every way possible. Of course, it's not punishable. But here's a couple, here's nice Or HaChaim, Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar. Here, what does it mean, Kadosh Ani, that I am holy? It says you should be holy because I am holy. What does that mean? Because I am holy. I am your God. What does it mean? It means like this. Here he says something like the Ramban. It could be, a person shouldn't say that the Torah didn't forbid me except, forbidden sexual relationships, homosexuality, they have relations with somebody else's wife, etc. That's what's forbidden. Of a low bechinas hachoshev, the histaklus, but think. To do is forbidden, but to think, I can think whatever I want, or to look, right? To look at things that are v'shar dukte hatiuv, other disgusting things, to talk about, right? Forbidden things, the licentious things. No, it doesn't say in the Torah you shouldn't do that. So he said, no, that's what it's saying over here. Kan siva, God says, even on these things. It is a commandment of the Torah that you must try to make yourself holy, remove yourself from from disgusting things, and anything that is similar to that. You should not come to actually do a sin. Why? Because I am holy. Since that I am holy and I am with you, so therefore I will help you to withstand this impurity, from impurity touching the Jewish people. Also, if a person thinks about bad things, then he negates, he pushes away the resting of God's presence on him. Even if God wants to give him blessings, he's busy thinking about his foolish, disgusting things, and God's presence can't rest on a person like that. This is what's called Hadrakon, it's the dragon that covers over the bad person's face, etc. In other words, it prevents a person from feeling or appreciating any blessings that God might want him to get, because he's thinking his whole mind is in the gutter. Another explanation says the Or HaChaim, Kadoshim, you will be. Right? That's the name of this Torah portion, right? God spoke to the Jewish people and said, Kadoshim tihiyu. It could be a commandment. According to Hebrew grammar, a commandment and future is the same, it's the same building, right? Kadoshim tihiyu means you must be holy. It's a commandment. And Kadoshim tihiyu means you will be holy. It's a promise. It says we can also look at this as a promise. Lashon atid, you will be. What does it mean? In a pasuk lemitzvah, in hefsek lemitzvah, there is no end to this commandment of being holy. Kikol shar akadoshim asher yikadosh, because anytime you person wants to make himself holy, adayim yeshbo geder akanas shar acher, there's always going to be a higher level of holiness than that, because God is infinite. Because there's no end to the levels of holiness that are in front of a person, anyone who wants to go into them. Take an example, the prophets. It says all the prophets, there were levels of prophecy, one above the other. Moses, it says, was the highest of them. And maybe we can also say, there's even a level higher than Moses. Namely what? The Mashiach. The Mashiach, that he will be crowned with the crown of crowns. Moving like it says in the Pasuk Yeshaya, that was the Haftorah we had outside of Israel. The Haftorah, the people outside of Israel had on the last day of Passover. There will rest on him the Spirit of God, and etc. And the rabbis say that Moses, that Moses will be the future Redeemer. Like we explained this in another place. If so, Ein Shir Kavul Vadragas, therefore Kadoshim Tihiyu. It means you will be holy, no matter how holy you are now. You will. God is promising us that there's higher levels of holiness that you will attain. Therefore, it says Tiyu Ki Mitzvazu Ein Lo Hefsek. It's never ending. It's always in the future, always more and more. Tamid Yesh Begeder Mitzvazu. You should always command it to be higher and higher levels of holiness. And this is why, how can you always expect to be higher? Because I'm holy. God said, She'ein shir l'kedusha to yizbarach. There's no end to the holiness of God. And God desires that his children should be similar to him. So now you can understand what will come from that by being connected to God, the amazing highness and holiness that results. Here's a nice thing, this Dat Zakanim. He says, you should be holy because I am holy. This is, why should you be holy? Because I am holy. Don't go after the idols. Like we said, even if you want to say that you're going after the idols for the sake of God, in order to recognize the Creator, and to make a separation, nevertheless, but going right, nevertheless, don't go after them. That's what it means. You have to be holy, even if you want to say, I'm just pointing, looking at them. I'm not really gonna believe in them actually. Right, to believe in these idols. I just want to know what they are so that I'll avoid them. It says, by the way, that all of the wise men that sat in the Sanhedrin, in the high, we just learned this yesterday in Rashi, in the Ramban, the men that were in the Sanhedrin, the high court, and even the 23rd, the court of 23 people, they also have to know all of the idolatry in the world so that they'll know how to judge cases of idolatry. Know how to case judges of idolatry. Let's just look at Rashi over here. He says here, honor your mother and father. It says each person should fear his mother and father. That's a simple meaning. The Midrash says, all I know is a man, ish, a person, a man should honor his mother and father. How do we know that a woman should also honor her mother and father? When it says tira'u harikan shnayim, when it says they should be feared, if tira'u, that you, plural, should be feared. Here it means, why does it say the father? Sorry, ish. Imova aviv tiro, his mother and his father, you should fear your mother. Why mother first? Should be your father and your mother. Why mother? It says because the Torah knows, God knows that a son fears his father more than his mother. Usually the father is more of the, the strict one in the family. But to give honor, and therefore in honor, so therefore because the Torah knows that a son fears his father more, so therefore the Torah puts the mother first, to know that you shouldn't fear her any less than the father. Later on, when it says honor your mother and father, the 10 Commandments, well, honoring your mother and father, it says father comes first. The Torah puts father first. Why? Not that you should honor your father first, but because it's revealed that the father honors his mother more than his father. So therefore the Torah goes against your nature. Also it says you should keep my Shabbos. That's what it is. You should fear your father and mother and keep Shabbat, to say that even though that I commanded you to fear your father, but if your father and your mother tell you that you should defile Shabbat, hey, we're going to the beach, want to come with us? Al tishmalo, don't listen to him. V'kein b'shar kol mitzvahs, and all the other commandments, right? All the other commandments, if your parents tell you to go against a commandment, any commandment, you don't have to listen. Honoring your parents are also a commandment, but your parents are also obligated to honor God, just like you are, so they can't tell you to go against God. I am God. Atav, Avicha, you and your father are both obligated to honor me. Therefore, don't listen to your parents if they tell you to go against me. What does it mean to fear? Don't sit in his place. Don't speak when he's going to speak. Don't butt into your father when he speaks. Don't contradict what he says. What does it mean, honor? Give them food, give them to drink, buy them clothes, shoes. You should escort them, bring them in, take them out, etc. Honor and your mother and father. Of course, there's not a lot of beautiful explanations here. We can't go into all of it. Here, let's just do this quickly. Al tifnu el elilim. Don't go after the idols, idolatry, and gods that are made into sort of a form. Don't make for yourself. I am God. So what does it mean? Al tifnu el elilim, to serve them. Elilim comes from the word al, not. They are like nothing. God creates them in order to, of course, the sun, for instance, take the perfect example, the sun. Sun has amazing powers. Sun gives light, sun gives heat, sun gives nourishment, right? All the plants live from the sun. No sun, there's no plants. No plants, nothing to eat. All the animals die. So let's worship the sun, right? It says, listen, the fact is the only reason the sun has power and the only reason the world needs the sun is because that's the way that God set the world up. God is the boss of everything. The sun doesn't do anything. The sun is a big zero. It just happens to be that God set up the world in a way that his blessings come through the sun. Warmth, light. In the beginning, it says Elilim. First, they're called Elilim. Elilim means they're nothing. And then they become gods all of a sudden. Elohim Masecha, they become molten gods. What does it mean? First of all, they're nothing. But if you go after them, then in the end, you make them Elohu, to God. Right? Like something like drugs, right? Drugs. God forbid a person takes heroin or something like that. It's the most stupid thing in the world. No one would ever take it. But once a person takes it and it feels good, all of a sudden it conquers his whole life. He starts lying and cheating and stealing. Lo ta'asu lachem, don't do for you. Lo ta'asu lacherim, don't do for others. Other people shouldn't make it for you. And if you say, maybe I just shouldn't make myself, but I can do it for other acharim osim lachem. Other people can make an idol for me. That's why it says, Lo yelecha, that's what it says in the 10 Commandments. You can't, not yours and not others. Good. That is the first 3 sentences of this week's Torah portion. God willing, see you tomorrow, 8:15 in the morning. Have a good day with Mashiach now.